The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the Leaders in Housing Counseling call for June 4th, 2015. We're very glad you're on the call. We're going to dive in right away because I think we have a crowded agenda for today. And let's get started. I know some people are still joining us, but we'll plow through and cover a lot of ground. I'm going to do a quick update on the federal funding for housing counseling. Obviously, it's a regular on our list, but things are sort of moving forward, and Matthew will give us a good background on it. Hopefully you've seen there's a Housing Counselor Certification website conference call from HUD. Sarah Jarek is going to be doing today. We'll give you the details in a minute. I think our feature for today is we've had a terrific discussion internally among all our groups around the client management systems and what they should look like for the future. We've got Lori Kadavi from FireSpring. FireSpring, of course, is the group that has been providing us with lots of great webinars on media and technology. This is our chance to really brainstorm and think big about what this should look like in the future, and we'll need to take a few minutes at the end and just think about how to make this into something useful that then gets translated into client management system providers. But it's been a great conversation, and we'll continue it on the call today. We're going to take one more stab at the financial capability and rental counseling standards. They've been kicking around a little bit. We have gotten a very small response. Matthew's done some thinking about it. We're hoping others will chime in. We're trying to decide whether we should submit comments or not, so your feedback on this one would be helpful. And then I hope we'll have a few minutes to talk about joining NHRC. It's, as you know, doing great work. Really want to build up the number of groups that are involved. 105 members already, yes. We continue to grow. That's just great. Good given that we're not even 3 years old yet, this has been a terrific response. But we do know there's a few of you out there who haven't joined, and we want you to think about that seriously. But let's dive into the agenda now. So, federal funding. Matthew, what's the story here?
All right. So I should have put the numbers up there again, but I think folks probably know them by now. The House is debating, and the THUD bill now. We'll vote on it later today. The funding levels, just to remind people, are HUD Housing Counseling is level funded at $50 million, and NFMC, there's an $8 million cut from $50 to $42 million. There were a couple amendments offered that I just wanted to mention. One was from Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee. She had proposed an amendment that would just be a 1% cut in all programs across the board. They had a voice vote on that this morning, and it was rejected. They will vote on it. Then they asked for a recorded vote so the whole House can, be on the record voting on it. I expect it's not going to pass, but just wanted to mention it, and we'll let folks know when we know how that turns out. And then there is this is not directly counseling related, but I know folks on the call do care about the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing program. There was another amendment that would have prevented HUD from spending money on that, and that was also rejected on a voice vote. So we'll also keep you updated on what happens with that when they do the recorded vote. But all of that is somewhat irrelevant. You see we have the new developments. The big thing that we're hearing from the House, from Republicans and Democrats alike, is that it's becoming increasingly clear to everyone that the funding levels that they're currently working with are too low. It required really big cuts to programs that really just aren't sustainable. The Chairman Price at the markup of the THUD bill spent a long time really, deriding the spending levels that they were forced to work with. So it's increasingly clear that they're going to have to come up with some kind of compromise with the Senate that will roll back sequestration. So the effect of that would be, assuming that happens and people really believe it's going to happen, there would be a higher overall number for the THUD bill. So that's good news. But that the higher level, depending on what it is, would really likely be used to undo cuts to some of the biggest programs. So, for example, Amtrak, I think, had their budget cut. I forget the number, but it was very significant. It might have been like 25%. Those would be the kind of holes that they would start plugging. We obviously would push for a higher number for trying to reduce the cut to NFMC. They definitely would not increase funding for the HUD housing counseling program. So we would put our effort into trying to, maybe instead of an $8 million cut to NFMC, it's a $5 million cut. That's what we would try to work on. So that's probably sometime down the road. It would require the House and the Senate to reach a compromise on sequestration, which is not easily done, but I think we're cautiously optimistic that that's going to happen. And that's all I've got.
Okay, good. We'll keep you all informed as it progresses. Thanks, Matthew. So I'm assuming most people saw this, but just to make sure, this morning HUD announced that they're going to do a call today on the Housing Counselor Certification website. So I think this represents a step in the progress. We're all anxious to know what the timeline is and when certification details will come out and when we can start testing and things like that. This is one step in the path, and we may learn a little bit more from the website about certification expectations. Sarah Jarek is going to do the call. It's at 4 o'clock this afternoon. It's only for half an hour, so that means the content will be small, but since it's Sarah, she often crams a lot of information in, and the call-in information is there, and you should have gotten it in your email as well from Jerry Mayer at HUD. I just wanted to alert people to it. Okay, so let's move on. So we have been having, I think, a terrific conversation among ourselves about, it started with a whole critique on HCO. We were working with FHFA and on a whole variety of issues to improve performance with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but there are many problems that groups had with HCO and with its support and the way it was working. So we started out as a fairly limited conversation just to HCO. A number of you raised that there are increasingly more problems with Counselor Max now, and I think there's a broad recognition that these are deeply outdated housing counseling programs, that some of them reach into the 80s and 90s, and technologies are out of date, and that it's not the kind of 21st century technology that we need to move our industry forward. And this has now kind of grown into a broader conversation. We'll still do work on HCO, and we've just engaged with FHFA to do a call around the specific issues, and they're going to bring Fannie Mae into that conversation, so this should be a pretty good deep dive into these issues. But what it's morphed into is a bigger question about what do we need as an industry, and this has been a terrific conversation, and I think this could be a model for us to also, when we tackle other issues, we're always trying to figure out how to crowdsource information, how to figure out where people want to go with things, and on these kind of deep issues where it affects everybody's lives and their work, this was a terrific experience. So I posted a kind of a cut and paste from what people did, what people sent in the invite to this call, and we also added something that Phyllis Ellis from Home Free USA put together with her team, which I think also is filled with some ideas. But I think what we want to do is really think about what we need this software to do, what this platform to do, and how it can make our work more effective, how it can add to our ability to counsel, and maybe make us provide us with more ability to counsel more people in the future, and certainly meet all the compliance issues, whether it's HUD or Treasury or CFPB or the various local governments that we report to and funders. So with that in mind, we reached out to our friends at FireSpring, and hopefully you all remember that they've done some terrific webinars with us over the past year and a half around technology, around the use of social media, around how to market as a nonprofit, and they've been a real learning experience for me, and I should give you a heads up that we're scheduling one in July, which we will post on the Leaders and Housing Counseling lists. But we're working on a date in July to do another one, and we hope that it'll be kind of meet your needs. I think the others have been really high level and useful. So Lori Kadavi has agreed to join us from FireSpring and has put some thought into this, and I shared with her the document we had yesterday for what people's concerns were, and we're interested in this being something of a dialogue, so this is certainly fine for you to chime in the chat box, and we'll try to pose questions or take in comments as we go along. But Lori has been kind enough to think about this, to put a framework around some things that we should be thinking about, and help us think through what the kind of broad sweeps on the technology are. And then I think for us the question is, in kind of pulling all this together, how do we then put it into a product that's useful to institutions like FHFA and Fannie Mae, who does HCO, to NeighborWorks, who does CounselorMax, to other providers out there, and then maybe to HUD and to funders. And maybe this is a way for us to extend the conversation around technology that we've been kicking around for a while now. So with that note, welcome, Lori.
Bruce, thank you very much, and have enjoyed working with you guys, of course, over the course of the last year and a half, but really have appreciated these conversations around this topic today and helping me to understand your member organizations and this, really important challenge you're facing right now with technology and how to move the solutions forward for housing counselors and the nonprofit organizations that are doing this important work. And so as I looked at, and you shared with me, those challenges and kind of the feedback and synopsis of this great conversation y'all have been having, I was very happy to really, kind of give that broad-based overview of, how can you communicate these needs and how can these needs be met, which are very specific in your workflow and managing clients, and what are those kind of broad-based topics that we see on screen here that can address those needs you're looking for. So I hope that the information I can provide to you guys today will be valuable and will help to form that conversation and your ask for the development of a better solution.
Great, so let's dive in. So let's start out with cloud-based. So make sure everybody knows what it means and why is it important to us.
Absolutely. Well, we're all familiar, or I know at my age I'm familiar with, the idea of having software, and particularly databases historically, where it has been something that's installed, something you download, something you install on a specific machine, often in a corner office. And so as we're thinking about technology today and moving forward, just important to note that we are just well beyond considering that type of a software option anymore. So we don't want to look or be working with anything that's installed or accessed through a specific machine because, of course, it significantly limits our access. If we have to go into the office to do our work, to access our data, not only does it limit our access and our connectivity capabilities between programs, it just completely excludes integration with other software platforms. So the cloud, you know, as I'm sure you know are aware, just has become reality in terms of technology today. It means that your data, the software and applications that you use to manage your data are housed very securely on applications and platforms that you can access from any location, anywhere you are, as long as you have an internet connection. And you know, we've come so far through the years of people being very fearful of having, you know, data hosted on the cloud, being concerned about security, and of course, you know, you having security concerns and HUD requirements to. I can tell you across the board that where we're at today, the cloud is certainly far more secure a place to house data than any server you might have in your organization. So that's the first thing that's just vital, probably not earth-shattering, but vital to know that that's the type of software solution that should be considered in today's environment.
And your data is not resting on a hard drive in a computer that could get stolen or melt down and data get lost. I mean, this is also an access question that used to plague us in the early days when everything was on your computer and things went wrong.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, security backups, you know, we've heard just too many stories. You know, you believe that something's getting backed up daily or whatever. Yeah, it just smash and grabs, fires, and meltdowns of servers are by far the greater risk for losing data.
So dashboard, this is actually an important thing to describe for us, I think, and helpful to know.
Absolutely. You know, with technology today, you know, the best solutions and the way developers are creating software now, you know, really are creating user interfaces, that part of the technology that you interact with, in a way that's much more user-friendly and intuitive than it ever had been before. So the best solutions today, when you log in, you come into a dashboard where you're going to be able to customize that and really see the most relevant information that you're tracking through your software without ever, you know, clicking a link to get into it. So, you know, in a counselor's case management situation, it's going to, you know, provide them, you know, of course, their tasks, you know, all of the daily operations that are first of mind when they come in. And a dashboard that's the front face of your software. The two main considerations are that they today should be, and most of them are, just intuitive and easy to use. Doesn't require a great deal of training to set them up, to customize them for yourself, and that ideally that they're able to provide different levels of access for different users. So, you know, my counselors who have direct access, you know, may have, you know, complete access to get into their specific clients' projects and all of that, but I might be able to share it with administrative staff who can log in, you know, to the dashboard only and see an overarching global look at where we're at. So that's really important, as I understood where you guys are at and how diverse your programs and you know, the different various ways that you interact with housing programs that you serve. That's vital, is that you can share just what needs to be shared with different staff members.
And one of the themes that we saw a lot of people talking about was this, that you have people with needing different access at different points. So tell me if this is the wrong place to ask this question, but so you might have a volunteer or a very early admin person who just does data entry, should not have any access to any client information outside of what they're doing entries in. You might have a bookkeeping staff who has to figure out contract, what gets applied to which contract and how to bill for it, so they'll have a different slice of that information. And then you have managers who want to supervise the work that counselors are doing to figure out if we're bringing deals to closing and if we are being efficient. And then we also have intermediaries who are are monitoring the work of subgrantees and making sure the reporting gets done properly and things like that. So all of them needing a different level of access. Is that defined by the dashboard, or is there another place where that happens? How do we think about that?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's most, to I guess say it's going to be something that's developed into the software itself. So the software or the platform should have a permissions area where you can set up whether it's groups of people. So, like I might say, hey, I have 8 counselors on staff. They all need the same level of access to their own clients specifically. But, they can see and access all of the same things within the software. So it could be group access. It could be individual access. And then, almost anyone, right, whether you say it's a volunteer or that they're going to be able to, when they log in, they're all going to come to a dashboard. They're going to be able to customize that interface to see just the things, and arrange those in a way that is meaningful to them. It's the reporting. It's the data access. Those permissions are going to go deeper into the software. So I see what I have access to, so it's the same dashboard, just they need to make sure that the technology itself has permission levels that you can control and set up.
Good. So automation, which I think we all love.
It is, yeah, it's a game changer. It's certainly, just really is how we should be operating today. And integration and automation, they truly are where it's at. So again, as we're looking at software decisions today and moving forward, really you should expect and know that automation is here. There's no doubt about it. So today, software can really have that capability to document the processes with little or reduced human interaction. So gone are the days where, something comes in, we get a static version of it, and, that Connie goes in and types into this different software application or into QuickBooks or whatever, program that you're using. Automation means that, when you have your technology integrated, you're able to say, okay, this process that is set up and being tracked, I can now have access to. Showing a progress bar is a great example of automation. So if you have a process and I log into that client's account, I can see where a client is at in terms of that process. It will show me and automatically, just in itself, list elements within a process, for example, that are yet to be included. So, if I'm tracking a project that has 12 steps in it, I ought to be able to write on that constituent or that client's record, immediately see, visually where they're at in the process and what their next step is and need to be done. And that solution can do that for you today with little to no human interaction. And then again, it should be set up in a way where, you're going in one time, customizing your software to properly manage your specific processes and workflows, and then the software is going to automatically create those tasks or the associated steps in the process so that it's extremely automated moving forward.
So that means that if for somebody's action plan, it would populate the missing elements, and they wouldn't have to be entered manually. They'd be there in the action plan, ready for the printout. That sounds terrific. And one of the complaints we heard a lot about was the redundancy, so that people had to enter information at different places, the same information, and not having it populate instantly every place where it should be in place and things like that. So that would be good. So here's one that I think didn't show up in people's ideas so much, but I think is really important to our work. So integrating with the website.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is tied, Bruce, directly to automation, because this is one of those kind of pivotal ways where it's vital that we are in a position where not only are we removing the need for duplicate and entry into many different programs, but that, you know, a lot of the effort or, you know, completion of these tasks are able to be accessed through the website from the client's perspective. So a big part of how we use automation is based on the ability for interactions that are conducted on our websites to be automatically dropping that information into your client management software, whatever that ends up to be. So a few examples of this, you know, as I think about counseling, case management, and client management. So if you have an online form, you know, whether that is a, you know, just an initial request for help or, you know, I'm sure there's many different forms that folks are filling out, you make that available on your website, and that data, as your client fills it in on the website, is going to enter in the website and drop automatically, be field mapped automatically into your client management software. So nobody needs to take it, export it, import it, do any of those things. It should flow right in today's technology. It can, as mentioned before, with automation, you know, it can generate then maybe a series of associated tasks that are associated with that process. You know, another thing that I imagine, and again, I don't claim to be an expert on counseling services specifically, but if, you know, a part of that application process or the workflow in this is them needing to upload documents, again, that level of integration between the website and your client management software can just make that seamless. So if, as a part of their application or process, they're uploading documents, that uploaded document should be able to go and land directly in that client's account and you know, check that progress or that piece of the process off of the list. These aren't like pie-in-the-sky dreams anymore. This should all be certainly doable today. And the kind of key to the ability to integrate technologies like this is through an API. And so this is one of those critical things that when you're considering software, it's important that you're looking at software that has an open API. And what that is it's an application programming interface. And APIs, they're kind of sets of requirements that govern how one application can talk to another. So they're the doors that allow for access to specific aspects of your data or functionality that allows those two platforms to communicate. So sometimes it's as simple as mapping fields, right, from an online form on your website into the appropriate fields in your client management software, to, you know, more kind of, I guess, sophisticated business logic where it says an if-then scenario. So if this happens on my website and gets completed, then this happens in my client management software. In that scenario, it might be it creates this set of forthcoming tasks that are the next steps for this client. So you know, like for a FireSpring website, for any website that you look at, for any donor management software, I think an open API really is critical, because in order for it to work, both softwares have to have that open API. They have to have the doors, and as long as that's the case, then there's always the potential to have those technologies talk. And that's where we really get into having things work and you know, be running behind the scenes in automated and integrated ways, saving us hours of time.
So, I mean, I think this is really an important idea that clients enter their information on your website, and then it flows right into your program. Nobody else has to touch that except to make sure things are accurate and updated. That is an incredible efficiency that we could benefit from. I know some groups have designed proprietary programs around this, but if it flowed into our client management system so that we didn't need to enter, that is huge. And so
it really
the other
is.
thing, go ahead.
Oh, and I was just going to say, because and again, I don't know all of your, or even a touch of your requirements, but it's important to note too, when you think about an integration with a website, when you're thinking about maybe sensitive data or, social security numbers or things like that. So, forms like this and integrations between your website and that, sometimes it may be on the public site, a form that anyone can access. But websites today, you always should have the option for a password protected area as well, so that client, it's specific to that client, they have to log in to access, upload, enter that sensitive information. So I just thought I wanted to throw that out there and note that that's important.
And then you mentioned documents, and so our world revolves around documents. So whether it's a mortgage application or loan modification or even a rental situation, it's all about documenting income, documenting the situation. And so how would people manage documents in terms of their website, and so they enter into the portal? How would they manage the documents? Is there a protocol for that?
There is, and again, it kind of comes down to access and allowing that. Again, any good kind of website that you have built, document management is a part of many of those, and for you guys, I think would be critical that you find someone that has that. So the ability to upload documents from your end user's perspective or download them off of the website, it should be both ways, easy to do. And then in the back end of most systems today, there's a document management system, a library, where you can create folders, that are specific to those clients, that you can house all of the documents then related to this client in their specific document folder in the back of the website. There's the potential, too, that, of course, you may not want to house them long term there, that you may, be happy with that being housed in the client management software itself. Those are, decisions and choices that you definitely will have, if you're looking for those going in, saying, hey, I need to manage documents, I need to find software that handles this, and knowing that it's out there. And again, depending on the sensitivity, or, if you're a government organization or whatever, there are so many, solutions out there, from Google Docs to whatever. There are, great, Dropbox. So there's a number of ways to do file management, file sharing, and house documents like that today securely.
And then you also mentioned the Application Programming Interface, API, which is this basically doors which allow programs to share information. Am I saying this correctly?
You are, absolutely.
Okay, good. Okay, so, and then the next topic is customization and flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where I felt like you all are really kind of at the crux of a big challenge right now. And you're not alone. We work with nonprofits very exclusively here at FireSpring, and the kind of same thing applies here for where you're at with kind of how to bring out-of-date solutions. So in an ideal world, and where we hope that y'all get to, is that you're able to collect these concepts, and that HCO or Counselor Max or some other development entity is going to be able to create this ideal custom solution for you. I mean, ideally, perfect world, everything else put aside, we'd love to have custom software that's built just for our organization alone, exactly built to our specifications. And second to that, if we can't have that or afford that, then at least we'd like it to be built specifically, by and for people that are building it for housing counselors in more generic. At least it's for this group, and it covers the bases of the vast majority of you guys. That's not the case for hardly any of us. No matter what sector you're serving as a nonprofit, very rarely do we have those luxuries. So I guess what's most vital in selecting software or in requesting the development of software from these major players today is that it needs to be built with flexibility and customizations in mind, because we can really look and say, okay, we have core functionality, whether that's, HUD applications or rental agreement processes. Hopefully these guys are going to be able to create core functionality that really all of you use across the board. But if they are able to build it with flexibility so that you can add custom fields, you can, whatever different various programs you use, you're able to add that into your system specifically for you, then you're going to have it more tailored and customized to your needs. So build it with that end in mind, that look, we have, the core down that's going to cover 80% of what you do well, but we have it built flexibly enough that you can add those custom processes, you can add those custom fields and data that's just specific to your organization. And there are so many out there today, really, that's where development is today in terms of nonprofit software. There is a big attention finally, happily, being given to nonprofits. And so the wonderful thing, I think, is now that, it used to be a very closed door situation with proprietary solutions and, people not wanting to share, their platform or that's not how it is now. So, there are project management softwares. They're built with open APIs. They're built to work together today in that way so that, if, let's say, HCO Counselor Max develops a great solution for you, a new updated version, there are still going to be the potential, ideally, for those of you that may need a very specific thing, whether that's Smartsheets, or there's a number of applications out there where you should be able to plug these tools in that you need that maybe aren't included in the main thing, and then they'll work together. So I think that's what I would really focus on when asking for the ideal solution is, hey, get us something where if there are pieces that we need to build in and kind of add on to this, let us do that. That's kind of what I hope they'll come up with for you.
Good. And I see in your notes you mentioned Harvest Software, Basecamp. Is it called Rike?
Yeah, Rike.
Smartsheets and Pro Workflow are ones that were on your list. Very interesting.
It is. Yeah, there are so many, great ones out there. So, if there's specific things, even today that's like, hey, this isn't being addressed, we don't have it, these are things to look at that might be able to at least alleviate or get that taken care of for you. Worth looking at for sure.
And, I mean, a perennial problem, I know for HCO, and now it sounds like it's becoming more with Counselor Max as well, is getting proper support. So what can you tell us about that?
You bet. And this can be, again, as you're looking for a partner, however this ends up working out for y'all with the software, it is critical to have support, training, documentation, ideally really well done live human support is the ideal scenario. But whatever software you're using, whether it's your website, whether it's your donor manager or your client management system, you need to look at it and say, I need to have this built so that it's built to outlive any changes that happen within my organization, because changes are going to happen. So whether it's built to outlast staff turnover, it's built to outlast, different changes and requirements. We know they're, moving to certification now for HUD. So we know things are going to change. We need to be supported and be working with a company that's going to be able to continue to evolve the software, going to be able to continue to support and train new staff. So if we lose Connie, and she was the one that, kind of managed and trained and used our client management software, I've got a partner here that is holding the baton. It doesn't matter. Connie can't leave with all of that knowledge. I can get my new Connie trained and up to speed and, without a hitch by this technology partner. And that's been a huge source for nonprofits across the board because we're always trying to do more with less. And so whether it's finding a partner that is willing to donate something to you, or says, hey, I'll do this. I sit on your board, and I've got a cousin that does this. The idea is to say, look, okay, the average kind of go-to geek or the average volunteer who comes in and says, hey, I can do this, it's in my skill set, or even the average, let's say, development specialist that is, kind of being an entrepreneur and doing their own website development company. Just across the board, the average time frame that somebody can maintain and will sustain that type of relationship with you is 2 years. That's just what happens. And so, we don't want to have to start over with software, when that person moves on, becomes busy, has a baby, relocates. We need to find a partner that's long-term and has the structure in place to support you. Hope that makes sense.
Absolutely, and we will push hard on this question. Then robust and flexible reporting. We have to report to HUD and to other funders. NFMC are all critical to us, and we've definitely had our share of glitches in doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. For you all, it's critical that your reporting is well done. And so again, I think I'd look to the developers that are going to build this for you to say, hey, they should know. You'll make them aware. They're going to know the basics of reporting that you need, and those standards should be built right into the software, right? So if there are 10 or 20 reports that are required, they're across the board. Those should be built in, kind of turnkey. Maybe you go in and customize them, but those should be ready to go out of the gate, easy to pull. And it's kind of just tied into number 5 there with customization and flexibility. Same thing needs to apply to reporting, because y'all do have diverse programs. Maybe one that I run that only 1 out of 50 of us do something similar to this. So again, it just harkens back to just really having software that's built with a really customized thing, because that's going to apply not only to the fields and the interface and how you use it, but it's going to tie into, if I can create a custom field, then I'm going to be able to report on that custom field. So I can pull the reports that I need based on the specifics that I do. So they should get you a great starting point with what's known and what's going to be across the board, but then it has to be built so that you can also pull custom reports based exactly on the work you're doing.
Well, and our commentaries, reporting was actually first on the list, and it's the most common and biggest issue that people have with, especially with HCO. So definitely important. And so 21st century mobile friendly, what's that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, today, and again, I don't imagine this is going to be earth-shattering to y'all, but every software that you use needs to be mobile-friendly. We are well beyond, I think it's 68% of online activity today is going on a mobile device or a tablet. So, and it could be, it depends on your needs. It depends on the setup. For a website, for example, it might be responsive design is something that we commonly hear, where the website actually recognizes the type of device that it's being loaded on and accessed through, and it's just going to automatically adjust its screen, basically in a collapsing way, up and down based on where you're accessing it. That's not right for everyone, because for some organizations, that could become an 8-mile-long scroll, if you're trying to do it that way. So, it might be that you develop a mobile app, or that software has a mobile app. That might be the best solution for you. Or that there's also something called mobile friendly or mobile optimized. And that's a different thing entirely. And again, these are very, they're all under the same goal, which is, I don't care how someone's accessing me, it needs to look great, function great, for my counselors when they're getting on a smartphone, for my clients when they're getting on a smartphone, whatever it is. And so mobile friendly is kind of a different thing, and it's not something that people think about a lot, but it's really a great solution a lot of times for people, especially when they have really deep and diverse, content and areas, because what that does is it's kind of like you have a primary website, but that you have a section of your software or your website, whatever you're talking about, that you can specifically build out for mobile. So it's almost a secondary version, because that way the forms are built specifically for those pages. So if I might have, and I'll just use a donor form because that's the world I'm very familiar with. On my website, I may have, 7 fields on my PC or desktop version, full website. But if I'm on a mobile version and they're accessing my mobile site, that form, will be sized properly for the screen, but it may only have 4 or 5 fields, just the basics to get the transaction complete. So there's a lot of different ways to get mobile friendly and have a good mobile application, and it's going to vary depending on who you are and kind of what your needs are. It's different for all of us.
And what I think it means then is that people could enter your program and your portal from their phone. And we do know that the penetration in communities of color of computer is more commonly through smartphones, and is actually deeper in those populations, which is one of the places we want to be reaching and effective. Also means that counselors could be doing on-site intakes and counseling people, and don't have to be tied to the office, and their equipment could be mobile as well. So. Interesting things that open up possibilities for us out in the future. Let me just check, Matthew, do we have some questions here?
There hasn't been much. I think people have just been taking in all the information. At the end, we did have a couple folks jump in, someone making the point that Bruce just made, that it would be helpful to be able to enter client information mobilely, so if you're doing an event. Someone else did flag that there could potentially be issues with confidential client information being entered mobilely. So that's something we would have to think through.
So, Lori, can you speak to that question? I think that's what freaks us all out.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are, those kind of human policies and practices that we need in place, you guys being experts on that, because I think you're absolutely right. And what I do know about it is, you can encrypt any page, and I'll speak to the FireSpring platform if I'm talking about a website form. So you can encrypt and make pages secure. So, that part of it can be taken care of. Again, ideally, that may or may not be the case in, a client management software. I can't speak to that, but, that should be an option. But I will say that Wi-Fi, kind of open source Wi-Fi, for example, is not as secure, as a network, for example, when we get in there. So, really, I don't want to at all make the impression that I'm an expert on that. But yeah, when it comes to maybe the most confidential data, certainly entering Social Security information, those types of things, that I would probably recommend or think that your policy would be that maybe that doesn't go out on a mobile device or on a kind of a Wi-Fi network that's open. But that even at that, knowing how your workflow is, and let's say I have a housing counselor that's out, in the field working with a client, there's nothing to say that I can't enter notes in, about that, put that into a secure form that's encrypted, and, therefore have that maybe drop into my database or at least be able to be copied and pasted or whatever the case may be. And again, all going to be very specific policies for you guys, but that is an important thing that she brings up. The Wi-Fi world, when we're talking about hotspots or, using those types of things out in the field, could be a concern, and you'd want to address that for sure.
Okay. Well, this has all been very helpful. I think this is a lot of food for thought. I am in love with this idea that if we had a world where clients could enter their data on a website. It would flow into the counselor and into the CMS, and then could be exported out, for example, to Hope Loanport along with attached documents. That kind of seamlessness ought to be an assumption that we try to build into the kind of work that we do, and really reduce the amount of data entry that we're doing and create more time for doing counseling. We've had a terrible problem with accuracy in the reporting side, and that just really jumps out at you at all the comments that we've seen. And that seems to be a very solvable problem in technology, and really is more a problem of investment than it is in know-how. And so really paying a lot of attention to that, and certainly the support that counselors are getting on any of the systems has turned out to currently not be very, very good at all. It used to be better in the past, but we've lost a lot of ground, and we'll have to build that in. I mean, one of the attractions that Home Counselor Online has is that it's free right now, that it's paid for by Fannie Mae. Counselor Max does come with some expenses, though, under the NFMC contracts. That's been covered by NFMC, but that won't be around forever, so that will be an issue, and we need to figure out what a way of funding this might be in the future. So something I may be throwing out there. I don't know that Lori, you have any insight on huge pots of money that might pay for building technology infrastructure, but it's something we have to pay attention to. Good.
Yeah.
Well, we look.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to agree with you. I have little to share, but you know, I from my perspective, with the important work that you're doing, and you know, I truly believe that funding always a challenge to find, but that you guys have many options to consider.
Well, Lori, thank you so much. This has been really helpful. We look forward to doing another webinar with you in July. And we'll need to get the topic out there and some dates that work for people, but we'll be working on it. And so thanks so much. And I think for everybody, our next steps are going to be to figure out how to pull this together into some kind of a useful document. We will definitely deal with Fannie Mae and with FHFA on HCO issues. We'll want to share this stuff with NeighborWorks. I think we have a real interest in trying to kind of elevate the conversation on this and make sure that, for example, HUD, who is our regulator, it becomes a champion of sort of these bigger concepts. We're sort of intrigued with this. Last September, some of you participated in our meeting with Secretary Castro. That was one of the outcomes was this idea of a technology summit. I think we've been sort of struggling how to get our arms around it, but maybe this gives us a framework for some ideas to work on, and we'll talk with Sarah Tariq and others about that. So definitely still interested in your ideas. Feel free to continue the conversation. Let's just quickly jump over to the next topic, which is the financial capability and rental housing counseling standards. You know, we need to figure out if we want to make a comment or not. We're usually not a shortage of words, but to be honest, have not gotten a lot of feedback on this. Matthew's done some thinking. So Matthew, what should people be thinking about, and give us some ideas?
Yeah, so there's a few things. We talked about it last week. I'm just going to touch briefly on the things that arose last week, but I between then and now had a chance to look at them and think a little bit more about them. The big thing that kind of concerned me that I wanted to flag is with the financial capability counseling. So the proposed standards would apply. They say that it could apply to a standalone program, so where the program is specifically just targeting financial capability, or that it could be financial capability counseling that's a component of some other kind of counseling, such as foreclosure prevention counseling, pre-purchase, rental. the thing that concerns me about that, so and the other component of it is that there's a certification requirement and as well as a continuing education requirement. The thing that concerned me is that I think essentially all counseling includes a financial capability component. I mean, that's just part of working with people on their financials, going through their budgets. I mean, that's it's included really in all the counseling that's being done. The way that I'm reading the proposal is it seems like you would require that certification for everyone who's doing any counseling, because you would be doing financial capability counseling, and therefore it seems to me that the certification would be required. I think it's different. I think that where you're doing the standalone, and that certification makes sense, that you want to stand out. You want to. It makes a lot of sense to say, I have this additional certification. And just to be clear, this would be in addition to the HUD certification. So that's something that I think is an issue. I don't know what the solution is, whether it's a proposal suggesting to them that the certification or the standard generally only apply to standalone financial capability counseling is the one idea I have. Bruce, do you want to add anything to that discussion, or if folks also have any thoughts on this, especially if you've had a chance to look them over, but if people have any thoughts, definitely share them in the question box.
Right. I mean, I think that's a big question. Is this a big deal for us, or maybe this is fine? Maybe we're happy with the idea that there's another layer added onto this. So we're really trying to figure out what people think we should, what positions we should take on this. So, feel free to weigh in. If you don't weigh in the next 5 minutes, just shoot us an email. We're trying to figure out.
So just to be clear the way that I'm reading it is that essentially all counselors would have to, in addition to the HUD certification, have financial capability certification along with the 10 hours of additional continuing education annually. Let's see, we've had one person jump in. I think it's the depth. For more in-depth financial capability would then require the certification and be broken out as a separate service. So I think I'm reading that as if it's a standalone thing. I mean, I guess there's always going to be shades of how in-depth you're going with the financial capability component of the counseling that when you're doing foreclosure prevention or pre-purchase, whatever it may be. But there's also, the standards don't really give any, guidance on where have you crossed the line from just, general kind of financial
that could be our comment. That could be our comment.
We've got a bunch of people jumping in.
Oh, good.
I believe we need to be careful when counselors start advising clients on investments. That's the next point we were going to bring up, so we'll come back to that. Haven't read. If you're reading it right, I agree with you, and I'd comment asking them to clarify not to require the certification for other counseling. I don't think the intent is for all counselors to have to do it. Financial capability would be considered a specialty. I mean, that's not the way I'm reading it, is that because the way they frame it is that it could be whether standalone or it could be as part of foreclosure prevention or as part of pre-purchase. And maybe it is just asking for clarification on it, but I'm reading it as financial capability counseling, including when that's as a component of foreclosure prevention counseling, rental counseling, whatever it might be. All right, we've got a bunch of other people, but I think we're running out of time, so I'll come back to all of these, and thank you everyone for sharing, and we'll be in touch on the leaders list. The comments are due a week from tomorrow, so we'll sort this out and let folks know where we're getting.
Yeah, we'll pay attention to the comments that people have put in these boxes. So we do read these and go back after the calls and spend some time looking at people's comments. So this is all very helpful to us, and want to really thank you all for doing that. So we'd hope to spend a little bit of time talking about the NHRC membership. We're really out of time. you know, we really do appreciate the fact that groups are joining to support the work we're doing. We do something special for members, so they get a special session in the leaders conferences. We do special emails to them about funding opportunities. We do have a separate part of our website that has escalation contacts and funder contacts and some opportunities in down payment assistance and things like that that are helpful to groups. But you know, at the end of the day, I think the reason that groups join and support the National Housing Resource Center is because we're doing the work that helps us all, and we really think of it as a collective effort. We are really trying to reach out to every nook and cranny of our work and include people in the decision making as much as possible. Membership makes that all possible. It's also more flexible money, to be honest. It's 25% of our budget, and it's hugely valuable to us. So with that quick note, we'll be back in 2 weeks. There'll be the webinar with Sarah Jarek on certification later on this afternoon. We will have a variety of other things that we're going to be working on in the next few weeks that we'll keep you in touch on, and we'll certainly keep the conversation rolling about what a CMS should look like in technology. Well, thanks for all your good work out there, and we'll be in touch. Bye.